This is my mom, and I've known her for 15 years. How long have you had a personal relationship with Jesus?
About 35 years. I was about 10 or 11 at the time.
How do you explain what a personal relationship with Jesus is?
Well, it's an interesting question because, how do you explain what a personal relationship is, period, right? It's about having experiences with people, spending time with them, wanting to spend time with them, wanting to share things with them. And with Jesus, that means spending time, right? There's different ways you can do that, right? With the Bible, with prayer, by helping others and kind of seeing them the way Jesus might see them.
What does your personal relationship with Jesus mean to you?
Well, I shared a little bit about that, right? It means that I'm spending time with him. It means that I go to him when I have struggles, right? And maybe I'm stressed about something. I go to him when I'm super excited about something and I want to share that, or when I'm worried about something and I want to share it with him and ask for his help.
How did your relationship with Jesus begin?
Well, growing up, I was actually in a Baptist church, and so you weren't, actually officially part of the church until you got older and decided that that was something that you wanted to do. And so I was at a summer camp, and we had someone that was talking to us about what it meant to be loved by Jesus and be a Christian, and I decided I wanted to do that. And then after that, I got baptized in my church when I went back and became a member of the church.
How has your relationship with Jesus evolved?
Well, I think when I was younger, particularly in the church that I grew up in, it was a lot more around kind of learning all the different things about the Bible, because we had a big emphasis on the Bible. So it was about reading the Bible, and just kind of praying to Jesus directly. And then as I got older, because as you get old, I remember when I was little, I used to wonder why is it that the Israelites are always messing up? They're in the wilderness, they're never listening, they're always making these mistakes. And then as I got older and there were bigger problems and bigger challenges I had to face, I have more empathy, because I realized, wow, I'm always making mistakes, because actually one of the verses in the Bible talks about all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And so as I got older and realized that I made mistakes, I sinned too, that humility brought me closer to him, and kind of trying to rely on him and realize I'm not supposed to be doing things all by myself, right? But I'm supposed to be trusting for him to help me.
How do you maintain the relationship, and where do you go to church?
Well, a big part of the maintaining the relationship, just like it would be, right, with your friend or your boyfriend or your husband, is spending time, right? So I like to start my day with Jesus by reading the Bible readings for that day, reading a devotional that helps me reflect on what those readings mean, and how I might, make a change in my life to be closer to God. And then, of course, I'm praying during the day, sometimes if I have a minute or at meals. And then I certainly always end my day with Jesus. Our family likes to say a rosary together in the evening. And then I like to kind of, we have our prayer time together where we thank God for the day and ask him for his help. And then if I have time in the evening, then I like to kind of read a book about something about God, whether it's something from Pope Francis, or learning about saints, or, reading the different books of the Bible.
How does your relationship with Jesus bring you peace, joy, and hope?
Well, I'm someone that by nature is always really busy and sometimes can get a little stressed out about things. And so definitely my relationship with Jesus is something that's kind of a foundation, a rock that I can hold on to, and go to, and kind of when I'm struggling, get peace from kind of saying my prayers, from talking to Jesus about my struggles, and having kind of more perspective about, kind of the grand scheme of things, kind of what we're really here for, and remembering kind of how, something smaller that I'm struggling with fits into that bigger picture.
How is Jesus the center of your life?
Jesus is the center of my life because he's kind of what the day revolves around, right? As I was sharing, he kind of is how we start the day here, and who I come to in the middle of the day when I'm happy about something or I'm struggling, and it's the same person that I go to at the end of the day to kind of thank him and for how things are going, and just think about what are the things I can do to be closer
How did you become Catholic?
Well, when I met your dad, he was Catholic, but at the time I was attending a Presbyterian church. And then after I was injured, and we were getting older, and we were actually getting ready to start a family. I was pregnant with your brother, Olton. I realized I had to really start thinking about kind of what church I really wanted to be a part of. When you grow up kind of more on the Protestant side, there's a lot more fluidity, right, for kind of what types of churches you might be a part of. So there were different ones I tried out. And the more I tried different ones out, the more I realized like there wasn't really one in particular that I 100% kind of agreed with or understood. And it's kind of funny because I was really concerned at the beginning about infant baptism, because in the church I grew up with, you never were baptized until you were older. And so I just had a lot of questions. And so I started looking around and I realized, I never really considered the Catholic faith, because growing up, in a lot of the Protestant churches, it's kind of something that like you learn a lot about why the Catholic faith is wrong. And so I'd never really looked into it. And so I started looking into it. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized, wow, I felt like I'd kind of been a kid of a divorced family. And my whole life, someone had been telling me everything that was wrong about the Catholic Church. But the more I actually got to know it and learn what it really stood for versus what other people told me it stood for, I realized that it made a lot of sense. Because on the Protestant side, there's this idea that everything's about the Bible. And if it's not in the Bible, it can't be true. And although there's certainly truth in the fact that the church has protected and formed the Bible over years, and that it does have, it is a huge source of the truth, there's also 2,000 years of thought, right, that the Catholic Church had. And it's not like God stopped speaking to us, that Jesus stopped speaking to us just after the Bible was formed, right? There's just so many Christians that have learned so much. And as I just started learning more about the church, I just realized, wow, it makes sense, right? And so I got, so I started taking classes, and, right before your brother was born, I decided that, I wanted to be Catholic.
What are some differences between the Catholic and Protestant church?
Well, as I was sharing, one of the big ones is in the Protestant church, there's a really strong belief in kind of only the Bible, and that there's no kind of truth outside of the Bible. And so, it's very different in the Catholic Church, where yes, the Bible is the foundation. We have so many other things, right, that we've learned from different saints over the years that help us grow as Christians. Some of the things that are common misunderstandings, within the Protestant church is this idea that Catholics pray to Mary, or Catholics pray to the saints, and kind of almost Catholics confuse them with gods. And of course that's not true at all, right? That it's more about, hey, we believe in heaven. We believe that when we die, we're going to go and be with Jesus. And so naturally, anyone who has died, then naturally they're already with Jesus, right? And just like we ask our friends here, our parents to pray for us when something's wrong, it makes total sense, right? That we would, ask the saints in heaven, ask Jesus' mother, Mary, to pray for us. We ask people to pray for us all the time. And, it actually says in the Bible, I think it's in the book of James, the kind of the prayers of holy people are even more powerful. And so it makes sense, right, that we'd want to ask them to pray for us. But it's like an area that's really confusing in the Protestant church, where people think that that's something Catholics believe, but it's really not.
What are some of your favorite things about being Catholic?
One of the things I really like, and I think it's probably because I grew up Protestant, but I just like that, there's over 2,000 years of kind of tradition, right, that we're kind of benefiting from, that like when we sing some of the songs, particularly some of the Latin ones, right, during Lent or during Advent, that, we're singing something that, people hundreds and hundreds of years ago sang, right, that we're part of something so much bigger. I also like, a lot of the different, as part of the traditions, right, the different ways that the Catholic Church kind of developed things to make it easier for people to learn about the faith, whether that's kind of the beautiful stained glass windows, right, that you can go into a church and see and kind of think about how grand God is, how amazing the saints are, or whether it's some of the other traditions like, the Stations of the Cross, right, where you can kind of come closer to Jesus and kind of truly reflect about kind of the sacrifice that he's made for us. or even in Advent, right, where you have the Jesse tree and the different things that you can do to kind of remember the salvation history that we're all a part of.
This interview taught me a lot about the Catholic Church and how a personal relationship with Jesus helps people. How long have you had a personal relationship with Jesus? I've had a personal relationship with Jesus for 10 years, ever since I started Catholic school. How do you explain what a personal relationship with Jesus is? To me, a personal relationship with Jesus is the private time you spend with Him while praying. What does a personal relationship with Jesus mean to you? To me, my personal relationship with Jesus gives me direction and just helps me get through things. How did this relationship begin? The relationship first started when my parents sent me to Catholic school. How has the relationship evolved? I've been close to him and sometimes I've not been close to him, but the way I view things have mostly stayed the same. How do you maintain the relationship and where do you go to church? I maintain my relationship with Jesus by praying to him mostly and going to Mass on Sundays. I go to Mass at Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Church in La Habra. How does the relationship with Jesus bring you peace, joy, and hope? My relationship with Jesus brings me these things because it's nice to know that someone always has your back and there's always someone who loves you. How is Jesus the center of your life? Jesus is the center of my life because I desire to be with him and to be like him.